G'day. After watching Halloween Ends last year, I felt like I never got to fully express my feelings about it. None of my friends watched it, rightfully so, because it's terrible. So instead, I'll use this video as my method of whinging about it whilst comparing it to the preceding movies. The Halloween universe is a bit weird to follow if you're unfamiliar with the series and where each movie fits, so here is an easy to follow guide that I took from someone on Reddit. I'll be covering the movies that make up the H40 timeline. Firstly, the original movie from 1978. We start with a first-person shot of young Michael Myers killing his sister. Years later, he escapes the mental institution he's been in and makes his way back to his hometown. It's never explained how he and many others escaped, which I would think is pretty huge. You've got a cold-blooded killer in your building and he somehow just gets out during the night with a bunch of others. Jamie Lee Curtis's character Laurie is our protagonist and is babysitting on the night of Halloween. It seems as though Michael choosing to go after her and her friends is just completely random, just wrong place, wrong time. Maybe there's supposed to be something deeper about seeing his sister in her or something too and being hungry to kill again. I'm not sure. But Michael stalks her and her friends for a time and finds out where they're babysitting. After a few deaths and failed attempts to kill Laurie, Michael is gunned down by the doctor who was assigned to him. When they go to look at his body outside, he has vanished. There's some recognizable horror tropes throughout, like the main characters seeing the antagonist and them being gone when they look back a second time. It works in this one scene in the classroom, but is absolutely stupid in a later scene where Laurie doesn't even look away for a second. So the implication with this scene is that she's somehow imagining him being there just so vividly, or he just teleports out. Overall, the movie feels very B-grade, with certain aspects of the acting being not great or convincing, and some of the lines that are added in post are kind of distracting, with even worse acting, and even some tropey things that I find to be mostly annoying, like unnecessary sound effects that don't make sense or random jump scares where a person just teleports in from the ether.
Excuse me, Laurie.
Oh, Mr. Brackett, I'm sorry, Mr. Brackett.
Oh, I didn't mean to startle you.
Curtis as Laurie is quite good though, especially given this was her first movie role. Considering the low budget and Carpenter's still developing talents, it's at least well made in other aspects like that iconic theme song. The way it's filmed comes across as though the first person perspectives are meant to be someone stalking the characters. Shots are usually one whole take and they tend to linger for a time before transitioning, which reinforces the idea that we're viewing someone stalking their prey, and I really like that about the film. Given it's an older movie though, and the lack of effects for the kills, it tends to look a little bit goofy during the death scenes, but it's something that just kind of comes with the territory of older movies, especially ones that are on a smaller budget. So I can't really hold that against the movie, it's just a product of the time. I had viewed the movie once many years before, and I had completely forgotten about this one particular scene where the kids are watching The Thing from Another World, the 1951 adaptation of the novella Who Goes There, which Carpenter would later direct for the 1982 adaptation. My most favourite movie of all time, and it's just one of those little Easter egg moments that gets a kick out of me. If I was to do some sort of tier list, I would rate it as a B personally, just because it's not a movie I would go out of my way to watch again due to time not being as kind to it. When taking into account its importance and low budget and resources and what they had to work with though, I wouldn't be opposed to ranking it as an A tier. Just to give you a baseline for how I'd rate other movies as well, S tier is reserved for my absolute most rewatched and most loved movies. So for me, we're talking The Thing, Hot Fuzz, Apocalypse Now, both Alien movies. A tier are for movies that I think are great or impactful enough that I'd watch a second or third time, or movies that I wouldn't disagree belong in a top 10 of all time list. This would include Everything Everywhere All at Once, Casino, every Terminator movie except 3, Salvation, Genesis, and Dark Fate. B tier is for movies that didn't do much for me, but I didn't hate, or movies I didn't enjoy but can understand why they might be liked, all rated very highly. Examples include The Village, Shawshank Redemption, and Wreck-It Ralph. C tier is for movies that are objectively bad but enjoyable. Alien Resurrection, Poultrygeist Night of the Chicken Dead, and any Rambo that isn't First Blood. D tier is for the real stinkers. Movies that have made me want to leave the cinema, or movies and shows that I've turned off after only a short amount of watch time and never finished. The Last Jedi, Rise of Skywalker, Rings of Power, and The Room are very fitting for this tier. So there's the baseline that we'll come back to after each Halloween movie. 40 years later, we get Halloween 2018. Michael is in a mental institution and hasn't spoken a single word the whole time. 2 reporters are doing a podcast and try to talk to him, but instead only manage to set off the other patients. This is the start of this timeline seemingly tinkering with some sort of unseen force around Michael. They refer to him as pure evil in the first movie and still do here, but instead of the literal sense of him being an unfazed killer with Tard strength, they're almost trying to make it seem like there are other powers at play, with the other people in the quad all collectively freaking out, and even the dog joining in. Throughout this movie, when we're not following Michael, we're mostly focused on Curtis as Laurie and her granddaughter Allison, played by Andi Matichak. Assuming that's the correct pronunciation. Michael causes the bus transporting him and other patients to crash, makes his way around in broad daylight without a single person questioning his presence, it seems, and roams the streets on a killing spree, eventually coming face to face with Laurie. There's an insert of conflict between Allison and her boyfriend Cameron that I don't think really needed to exist as a subplot, and it's meaningless to the plot overall. Michael kills a lot of people, sometimes in brutal fashion, and his doctor that was on the bus with him turns out to be a bad guy of sorts who desperately wants to understand Michael. He goes as far as to almost kill someone and even takes Michael to Laurie's house, also he can try to unlock some sort of secret, as if Michael is anything other than a deranged killer, but this doctor has sort of made it his life's work to just get some sort of answer, so I guess he's more or less consumed by this. Then we get a climax where Laurie faces off against Michael and, with the help of Allison and Karen, Laurie's daughter, played by Judy Greer, manages to trap Michael in the basement before setting it alight. Overall, I enjoyed the movie on release and still enjoyed it on a rewatch. I think it looks like most other slasher films though. There isn't really much that distinguishes it from a lot of other movies outside of the music and obviously the character of Michael Myers. Some of the standout moments for me are the classic music stingers that gets used a couple of times, and this one particular scene of Michael killing a couple of random people in their house. I love both of these shots in particular because a lot of other horror movies would be using multiple angles and cuts. I really appreciated being right up close with Michael as he made his way towards the shed and into the house, and then in the next shot he goes out and you just have the camera sit there and just finds a place to sit as he makes his way towards the rear of the house. It brings something more memorable to the movie, like the original's first-person perspective shots. My reading of the scene and why it's filmed like this is that it's kind of showing us Michael's insights in a way. He moves calmly and without hesitation with no reason for his actions other than the people just happening to be in his line of sight and easily reached without others seeing him. I'm likely very wrong about the intent and purpose though, so please correct me if I am. I like some of the callbacks to the 78 movie too, like Laurie standing outside of Allison's school and when she uses the disappearing trick on Michael. The original movie gave us a solid performance from Jamie Lee Curtis and a couple of only okay to bad performances, but in 2018 we get, of course, another solid performance from Curtis and great performances from Judy Greer and Andi Matichak. Acting outside of the main characters is either good or serviceable, which should be expected given this isn't a low-budget amateur movie like the original. I really enjoyed some of the storytelling that is shown rather than told as well. Because of Laurie's PTSD, she had been training for a time when she would have to face Michael again. In the midst of this, she also had Karen learn how to handle weapons. There's a great moment where we see a child's drawings on the door of the gun rack, really just showing how rough of an upbringing it would have been, where a method of entertainment for this kid is to draw on a fucking gun rack of all things. This is an A-tier movie for me. Halloween Kills is where the series starts leaning into cringe. Story-wise, it's a nothing movie where the plot is not advanced at all. This takes place right after 2018, with Michael escaping the burning house, killing some firemen in one of the more enjoyable sequences that also visually looks great. I like this shot of him standing in front of the house. He goes out killing anyone in his way whilst making his way back to his family home. Some of the residents form a mindless mob that want to hunt him down, and at the end of the movie, Michael survives a severe beating, somehow kills a group of about 20 people, and then kills Karen. The tone of the movie is strange to say the least. There's a small subplot where the mob goes crazy chasing down one of the other escaped inmates from the bus crash, who I assume drove to the town, same as Michael. It's never shown. The mob chase him through a hospital and no one questions if it's who they're actually looking for, given that Michael is like 7 feet tall and surely they would have seen his face on TV. The man jumps from a window to commit suicide. Some people comment about what the fear of Michael has done to them, and nothing more happens with it. This plot point goes nowhere, and I'll talk more about it after I talk about Halloween Ends. What makes the movie difficult to watch is just how terribly cringe the dialogue is. Some of the lines are really bad, but they're delivered with the utmost sincerity. Laurie at one point spouts about how the only way Michael can die is if she dies too. But no, just put a bullet in his head. During a talent show at a pub, we see the 2 kids that are being babysat from the original movie, now grown up, as well as the nurse that has her car stolen. In the middle of this talent show, Tommy goes up and delivers some sort of memorial speech for the victims and survivors of Michael Myers, and it's just... I'll let the clip play.
It's Halloween night in Haddonfield. When terror is supposed to be fun. When we hide behind masks and we pretend we aren't what we are. Is he real? Who knows? Who's next? Maybe not tonight, maybe not tomorrow. But the boogeyman is coming for me. And he's coming for you. But he's not gonna get us. Not this time. Because we will never succumb to fear. This is for you, Laurie.
Why is he up here delivering this? Why did the writers choose these words and think it wouldn't look and feel completely out of place? A later scene in this pub, we get the awful tagline that gets repeated by the mob throughout the movie.
Head nasty snatchers in my parking lot?
Yes, sir. Love lives today.
But evil dies tonight.
Later, we watch Marion go full senile as she struggles to deal with object permanence. He's on the roof, for fuck's sake. Either shoot the roof or get out and just shoot him directly. One of the characters that's with her does give this a go, but her bullets can't reach Michael due to the wormhole surrounding his body. And then this happens. Another character, Lindsay, manages to escape and hides behind a tree. Later, when Tommy finds her though, she looks severely beaten and covered in dirt all over. So I'm not sure if there was meant to be a scene of her getting beat around and escaping or something, but it's jarring to say the least. The dad of Allison's boyfriend enters Michael's house by himself later on when he figures that he's trying to get back to his childhood home. And he does this instead of just calling Tommy and everyone going in as a group, which just... I think horror writers do this shit to piss people off on purpose. It has to be some sort of long-running gag in the writing community or something to write something so utterly stupid. And then when Allison and Cameron go in, they get split up momentarily. As Cameron screams and is pushed against a wall and stabbed, Allison lets out the most uninteresting call to him imaginable.
Cameron!
As if she wouldn't already be with him or on her feet in half a fucking second. I imagine this is a direction and writing issue though, given Andy's great performance otherwise. The choreography of the final fight is a fucking mess too, when you watch a man with a gun walk up to Michael. He walks up to him instead of doing what guns are meant to do, which is be shot from fucking range. The fact that 20 people just walk in one after another when he starts killing them is really the final nail in the coffin that seals this movie as an awful sequel and a really hard one to watch. I mean, an onslaught of blunt objects, a pitchfork to the back, knife to the back, 5 gunshot wounds to his chest and stomach, but he just gets up and overpowers everyone? Okay, I guess. The possibility of some sort of otherworldly force being at work with Michael becomes reinforced with Laurie's little speech about him.
I always thought Michael Myers was flesh and blood, just like you and me. But a mortal man could not have survived what he's lived through. The more he kills, the more he transcends into something else impossible to defeat.
So obviously, I don't like this movie, and I certainly don't like the dialogue. But I guess the kills kept me entertained, so I will just barely let it sit in C tier. So Kills is terrible, but Ends is even worse, somehow. The start of the movie takes place 1 year after the events of 2018, and Kills, a new character named Corey, is babysitting a kid who tries to lock him in the attic and give him a fright. Corey kicks the door open and accidentally sends the kid falling from the 3rd floor of his house just as his parents arrive home. During this scene, there's a callback to the first movie where we now get to see Carpenter's adaptation of The Thing as the movie for Halloween night. So that's one of very few things that I actually like about this movie. Overall, it's quite an impactful intro, and it makes you think the writers aren't going to be pulling any punches with this movie. After the intro sequence, we fast forward to 2022 and see that Laurie has bought a house to live in with Allison and is trying to move past her trauma, which I feel is a bit of a betrayal to how she's written in the 2018 movie, especially given that her own daughter was killed and Michael is still out there. If anything, I would think she'd be even more traumatized by him, and I'd actually think she'd be out there hunting him down actively. Kills graced us with some very awkward dialogue, and Ends continues that trend while also making it harder to watch because, if you didn't know, the movie is mostly a fucking romance. You get some small moments between Curtis and Will Patton as Frank, and, you know, it's a little cringe-inducing, but their acting is great. There is a real sense of chemistry between the two, and it's convincing, if a little out of place from what you'd normally expect in a slasher film. It's the attempt at chemistry between Matichak and Rohan Campbell as Corey that's truly painful to watch unfold. Corey is introduced to Allison via Laurie after cutting his hand open when being bullied by a group of fuckheads. You can tell you're supposed to hate them and want them dead with how the pack leader acts and his mate's dickhead haircut. After Laurie and Frank have their flirty moment in a shop, a woman, whose sister just barely survived an attack from Michael, has a go at Laurie and blames her for his killings. If we're to go off the 2018 movie, Laurie spent most of her life cooped up, training for the day she could face Michael, and never once had contact with him directly or even inadvertently. Where does a person get this idea that everything is her fault? She was attacked too. She lost her fucking daughter. Why is she getting the blame for anything? Following this scene, we watch as Allison and Corey dance together at a dress-up party, and the mum of the kid in the intro sees Corey and has a go at him for trying to have fun as he slowly tries to break out of his shell a little bit. He storms out and has a go at Allison for trying to treat him like a project. I won't show the dancing because not only will you experience physical pain from how uncomfortable it is to watch, but it's genuinely seizure-inducing, so it's a fucking health hazard, and I don't want to put anyone through that. The kids that were bullying him rock up to bully him some more as we watch the most pathetic disarming of a weapon known to cinema before Corey is thrown off the bridge and knocked out. We get a small scene where Allison is way too upset considering she's only known Corey for like 36 hours or something at this point, And then we move on to Corey waking up inside a storm drain and being grabbed by Michael Myers. Finally, 40 minutes in and we get to see him, but it's a strange scene to say the least. It's meant to be Michael seeing the same killer instinct and persona in Corey's eyes, but with the editing of the previous events being flashed on screen and how he peels away from Michael, it almost looks as if his memories have been peered into and they've bonded souls or something. A teleport from nowhere trope that can fuck off happens by this homeless man who threatens Corey before being killed by him. At Laurie's house, Corey rocks up to see Allison, and it's done exactly like Michael stalked her, complete with him disappearing and then teleporting in as Laurie sees the killer instinct in his eyes too. But the way this scene is written is for nothing more than the viewer, so they can get a kick out of the parallel to the old movies, and so we can see Laurie somehow deduce what his true nature is. All in all, quite goofy. Next up is another cunt character somehow blaming the survivor of a series of murders instead of the 7-foot-tall psycho with an insatiable hunger for killing. In a diner, we see Corey and Allison reconnecting as one of Allison's previous flings, I guess, tries talking to her. This very clearly middle-aged man talking to a girl that's supposed to be like 22 in this movie. You can tell she knows how to pick him. Corey tries to be intimidating, but it doesn't work when you're fighting to hold back tears. This bloke then tries to follow Corey and is led to the storm drain that Michael lives in. For some reason, a piece of concrete that looks like a face pulls his attention instead of the man sitting in the pipe, who is clearly visible as shit. He even moves the fucking torch into Michael's direction and doesn't see him somehow. We get another taste of some sort of supernatural element to this new timeline when Michael starts stabbing the bloke and he goes from this limping, decrepit man to shaking in excitement as strength is returned to his body. The very next scene, we see whatever the hell this is meant to be.
Oh my god, are you okay?
I don't know what's happening to me.
What's going on? Look at me.
Fuck me, I can't believe a team of 4 wrote this. During this, we see Michael outside watching Laurie, but he simply walks away. My headcanon is that killing people legitimately gives him strength, and so he doesn't feel powerful enough to take her on just yet. Just over an hour in, and we get kills number 3 and 4, or 4 and 5 if you count the kid at the start. The woman steps outside and sound cannot be heard until the light is turned on, and then you very clearly hear this man being stabbed. Again, just another goofy aspect of the movie and a bit of a trope that I wish filmmakers would do without. Also, genuine question, how was this dual murder planned? Did Corey give Michael a ride on his bike? Did they walk the distance together in complete silence? Who came up with the idea to kill these people specifically, I wonder? These are the questions I want answered. This little moment where Corey checks his injured hand, I guess is meant to be him feeling a surge of power go through him or something. This was also about the time in the cinema that I hoped it was going to be over soon, because I felt like the writers were doing everything possible to piss me off by creating such a poorly made film. But little did I know there was still another 40 minutes of movie left. We see Laurie talking to Corey's mum, and she becomes the third person in this movie who wants to blame anyone except fucking Michael Myers for the murders. More on this aspect later. Later, we watch Allison also blame Laurie for the events surrounding Michael that have taken place. I don't know how the writers could actually think this was a good idea to write down and keep for the movie, given that Allison has been directly impacted by Michael, same as Laurie, and would be fully aware that she never brought him to anyone and had only ever anticipated his arrival. But I guess we need some conflict because the plot structure outline the writers were following probably demanded it. Corey wrestles Michael for his mask, and we get to see those dickhead kids from earlier get killed, and it's okay, I guess. Satisfying because the characters are unbearable, but also a little lackluster on the gore aspect. Also a bit stupid in how it happens, given we watch one of the characters try to avoid a car by running in a straight line instead of, ducking behind the many cars. And when she's over the fence, she just stands there like a stunned mullet. A radio host that confronted Corey earlier for being on his property is killed by having his face smashed against the table. And it looks weird. His face is kind of instantly transitioned from normal looking to some very poorly done makeup effects. Poorly done in comparison to what 2018 in Kills managed to do, at least. Returning to Laurie, we watch as she prepares to kill herself, but I think she's omnipotent or something and just knew Corey was coming because she fakes the suicide in preparation for him to open the door to her. I'm unsure how she knew he was coming, but this movie seems to have a habit of doing things for the purpose of the plot. Logic be damned. Corey says if he can't have Allison, then no one can, and stabs himself in the neck just in time for Allison to return, and we see Laurie standing over his body with a knife in her hand. Drama for the sole reason of having Allison leave so she can have some sort of dramatic last-second return later. Michael enters to retrieve his mask as Corey comes back to life because throat wounds are only flesh wounds in this universe, and has his neck snapped. Laurie and Michael fight in an okay fight scene. I think it's better in 2018, but at least this one is bloody and pretty brutal. Michael is pinned to the bench top as Laurie slits his throat. But because throat wounds aren't real, he manages to somehow have enough energy to start choking her out. Laurie is going to let this happen as Allison rushes in and breaks his arm, and then Laurie realizes that a slit throat can't kill someone, and so she slits his wrist as well. Now, this is definitely a little goofy, keyword for this movie, and also kills, but I did like the town coming together to dispose of Michael's body completely so that everyone would know that the evil of their town was gone for good. The only stupid thing is that it's a scene that exists after having watched several characters try to blame Laurie for everything, but now suddenly they're with her to see Michael off. So Michael is gone, we get a nice nod to the original movie with Don't Fear the Reaper playing, and unfortunately, no refunds for having watched that garbage. So back to earlier when I was talking about the townsfolk victim blaming. I think this could have been an interesting plot point only if Corey was never made to be an incel Michael Myers. I think it would have been interesting to have the start of the movie be exactly the same, but then focus on his struggles to move on from being seen as a monster. Have Michael out on another rampage, but play on that teased aspect from Kills, where the town has been made feral out of fear, and have people continuously blaming Corey for everything as Laurie tries to come to his defense, knowing full well what it's like to be treated as an outsider. Have Corey sometimes be in the wrong place at the wrong time or something, as that paranoia truly starts to consume the town. Then this allows some sort of trauma bonding between Allison and Corey, which I think Enns was trying to go for, but it does not come across as anything other than goofy and stupid with how many red flags Corey is waving about as Allison just somehow falls completely in love with him. Maybe the three then fight Michael nearly to the death, so Allison gets her revenge, Corey gets his redemption, and Laurie gets her freedom. That's just some quick thoughts I had when I first watched the movie. Ultimately, the real ending for the series should have been, and it is to me, 2018, where Michael is bested and it's left a little ambiguous if he escaped or not, because the ultimate ending was Laurie facing her fears and overcoming them. Kills can be entertaining if you just want to see some gore. Enns doesn't have any redeeming factors, and is nothing more than a terrible romance movie with the IP of Halloween attached to it. I will say though, it's at least well made in certain respects, like it's filmed perfectly fine, and I thought the music was good, but fundamentally the story is fucking awful. And it was written by a team of 4 people, with one of those people being the fucking director of the movie. So I don't know why none of them ever put their hand up and said, hey, this is garbage, maybe let's do another draft. Fuck this movie, it obviously goes into the D tier, and until the next video, have a good one.